Okay, let's dive right into this. Welcome back, everyone. Today we're zeroing in on the absolute thrill ride that is the lightweight class, specifically the 2026 Moto3 Spanish Grand Prix. We're going to break down the final race digest and the ultimate results from the legendary Jerez circuit. It's a track that demands absolute pinpoint precision, and let me tell you, this battle did not disappoint. We'll look at the race progression, the podium finishers, and wrap things up with the crucial points rankings. So, let's get right to the action.
And wow, what a race it was. Máximo Quiles absolutely conquered Jerez. Now, winning a Moto3 race is a massive feat on its own, especially when you consider how notoriously tight these packs are, right? But Quiles, he pulled off something truly special here, a flawless pole-to-win performance. He started at the very front, managed this immense, relentless pressure from the chasing pack breathing right down his neck all race long, and he held onto that lead all the way to the checkered flag. I mean, this wasn't just a win, it was a huge statement. It's his second victory of the 2026 season, and it definitely proves his momentum is building at a pretty terrifying pace for the rest of the grid.
Let's move to the race progression and see how this all built up. Right when the lights went out, Quiles successfully defended his pole position. Then, as we hit mid-race, a fierce battle erupted for second and third place. And finally, at the checkered flag, Quiles held off the pack for a completely dominant win. From that tricky first corner to the very end, he was determined to dictate the pace, while a classic aggressive scrap happened just behind him in his slipstream. So that brings us to our podium finishers. First place went to Máximo Quiles for the CF Moto Gaviota Aspar team. Second was Adrian Fernandez on the Leopard Racing Honda. And third was David Munoz for the Liqui Moly Dynavolt Intact GP KTM squad. It was a spectacular day for the home fans, and all Spanish podium. Adrian Fernandez secured a brilliant runner-up finish after surviving that crazy mid-race battle, with David Munoz rounding it out. And you know what's really fantastic about this result? The sheer diversity of the machinery at the front. We've got CF Moto, Honda, and KTM all represented up there, which just goes to show how insanely competitive the engineering battle is in the lightweight class this year.
So the really crucial point here is the final gap, 2.009 seconds. Pushing his KTM to the absolute limit, David Munoz crossed the line exactly 2.009 seconds behind our race winner, Máximo Quiles. Now, in the Premier classes, a 2-second gap might seem pretty standard, but in Moto3, where races are practically decided by mere thousandths of a second and riders are glued to each other's rear tires, a 2.009-second gap from first to third is actually a massive margin. It brilliantly illustrates two things. First, just how devastatingly fast and untouchable Quiles' pace was up front, and second, how intensely Munoz and Fernandez were battling each other, which really cost them the time they needed to catch the leader.
Now, while there was celebration at the front, it was a much more difficult weekend for others on the grid. Looking at the race data, it was a really tough outing for the Japanese riders at Jerez. They were pushed to the limit in those fiercely competitive packs, ultimately finished outside the top 15, and scored 0 points. Moto3 is just such an unforgiving category. If you get caught up in the wrong part of a pack, it is incredibly difficult to break free, regardless of your skill level. The Japanese contingent was pushed to the absolute limit in these tight midfield battles. Since only the top 15 riders score in the World Championship, it ended up being a 0-point weekend for them in Spain. It's just a harsh reminder of how quickly fortunes can turn in this highly volatile class.
Stepping back from the immediate race results at Jerez for a second, let's look at the broader implications for the 2026 season. We're talking about the Constructor standings, where KTM currently leads Honda. This is the battle of the factories, where every single point scored by a brand's top finishing rider contributes to a separate championship. And right now, the narrative is shaping up to be a classic heavyweight fight.
Now, what's really interesting about this breakdown is the actual point spread. In the Constructor standings, KTM is sitting in the #1 position with a strong 95 points. Honda is in second place, trailing with 72 points. That's a 23-point gap, meaning KTM is starting to pull away a bit. But hey, in Moto3, a gap like that can vanish in a single weekend. Also, if we dive into the individual rider data we have, Marco Morelli is holding incredibly strong. He's currently sitting in 4th position overall with a massive 115 points. Consistency is absolutely everything if you want to win a world title, and Morelli is proving he's got exactly what it takes to stay right up there in the upper echelon of the standings.
So what does this all mean for the rest of the season? We've seen a flawless, dominant pole to win from Máximo Quiles, making it his second victory of the year. We're watching KTM exert their dominance in the Constructor standings, while riders like Marco Morelli quietly rack up massive points. The board is set and the tension is definitely high.
With Quiles gaining undeniable momentum and KTM dominating the points, the ultimate question is, who will step up to challenge them for the top spot in the upcoming races? Will Honda strike back? Will the Japanese riders rebound from a tough weekend? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer. Keep that question in the back of your mind, because if there's one thing we know for sure, it's that the lightweight class never stays predictable for long.